So yeah, now I'm adding these spherical bearings to this assembly, and I like to have all the hardware in each sub-assembly so that it's a lot easier to visualize which parts are fixed and which parts are moving. It also is easier for SolidWorks to figure out which parts can cycle without breaking a bunch of mates. So that's what I'm working on here, figuring out how to mount the shocks in there and realizing that I need to make some clearance cuts. So what I ended up doing was increasing the height of the shock mount. So that would be the distance from the bottom of the coil to the center of the spherical bearing. I had originally had it set to 2 inches, but there's too much interference, so I ended up doubling that. Otherwise, I would need some crazy cuts in here that would compromise the structure of that lower control arm. So now these parts are a lot taller and there's plenty of room for clearance. So now I just need to simplify some cuts here, and then the whole thing will be able to cycle really easily. So this mate that I'm editing is the lower control arm suspension angle. So my goal was 30 degrees of suspension travel in the negative direction, but I'm constrained by the misalignment spacers to 25 degrees, which is still plenty. I'll end up with almost 3 feet of travel on the front, which is, I mean, that's as much as trophy trucks have in the rear with a solid axle and 6-foot long trailing arms. So I figured 25 degrees is plenty, and then ended up with these really neat cuts right on the top of the part, super easy to machine, and there's plenty of room for clearance. So the next thing I'm doing is adding fillets for all these ball and mill operations. And so rather than making straight pocket cuts that are super easy to machine, I'm just assuming this is going to be a big complex part. Ball and mill operations are okay. And as long as I radius the inside corners, it will be totally machinable. So I'm fighting the urge to put in all my lightweighting cuts on this lower control arm because it just makes the part look really cool. It makes it look done. But I also realize that the sooner I do that, the more complicated the part's going to get and the more constraints I'm going to have in the future, because in the near future, I'm going to need to make some more clearance cuts for steering and for the tall knuckle. The dimensions that I'm adjusting now are the shock mount locations because they were interfering with the tall knuckle. So I need to move them back about 6 inches, and then there's plenty of room there. So this made the lower control arm really, really wide, which is okay because it just reduces the torque loads on everything. It reduces the moment arms on the mounts, which reduces the force. So I will have to increase my wheelbase because of this, because otherwise when these lower control arms cycle, they're going to run into the driver's feet. But that's okay because this is a gigantic buggy, and another 6 inches of wheelbase is not going to hurt anything.